special bonus episode of the Ramble On podcast. It is still the home of your now 1-5 last place in the A10 Loyola Chicago Ramblers, but the Ramblers cannot hurt us today, George, because we're not here to talk about Loyola. We're here to talk about some MTEs and preview the MTEs coming up here in one of the best weeks of the year, Feast Week. I wanted to start today with just a quick, I said I was going to play the sound and then I forgot to. So we're not going to play the sound, but I don't know if you caught the George Washington head coach's comments about MTEs and how the whole college basketball game is kind of rigged against the mid-majors.
I did see that, and I think he's absolutely right. A lot of these big schools don't want to play against these really good teams that are in the mid-majors, or in George Washington's case, and obviously Loyola's case in the A10 in a high major conference. Because really the only thing it can do, I think, is hurt them, which is a bummer. These teams should be scheduling teams like George Washington, teams like Loyola, teams like VCU, who I know we're going to talk about in a little bit in the battle for Atlantis. But yeah, he makes a really good point. I agree with him. These teams should step up and start playing better competition in these MTEs, because this year I feel like the field in the Maui and even the battle for Atlantis is not what it has been in the past. It's still one of my favorite weeks of the year. You got college basketball going all day long, all week long. Thanksgiving, it's a great sports week. I think it's the best sports week of the year, so I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with what Caputo had to say there.
Yeah, and it's part of the gist of what he was saying too, is that you'll call MTEs to discuss to express your interest, and they're just like, nope, not interested, not having you, you're not invited, which is really shitty to see. Loyola had the pleasure of playing in the battle for Atlantis, what was it now, 4 years ago?
Yeah, 2021. I think they lost that heartbreaker to Michigan State, lost to Auburn, and then pounded Arizona State in last place.
Yeah, yep, that's right. And obviously, you just heard those names right there. Auburn, who at the time was gaining their national prominence. Michigan State, who, if they're not a blue blood, they're about as close as you can get to being a blue blood under Tom Izzo. And now, like you said, we're going to get into the field, but Western Kentucky, Vandy, VCU, South Florida, Colorado State, Virginia Tech, Wichita State, and St. Mary's. If you're a mid-major fan, you obviously really like this field with VCU, South Florida, Colorado State, St. Mary's, and even a Wichita team that was a lot better than I was expecting them to be when the Ramblers saw them a couple weeks ago. But it really is lacking the top-tier big names that we become accustomed to these MTEs playing. And it really is a disadvantage to all these schools, the VCUs, the South Floridas, the Colorado States, who are now sitting here going, all right, yeah, it's a solid field, but where are our quad ones? Where's our chance to knock off some of the big dogs? And we're going to start with the Players era, but with the Players era now, last year it was 8 teams, this year it's 18 teams. There's word that it's going to become a 32-team event. And when you look at these 18 teams in this, Tennessee, Rutgers, Baylor, Creighton, Kansas, Notre Dame, St. John's, Iowa State, Houston, Syracuse, Oregon, Auburn, Alabama, Gonzaga, Michigan, San Diego State, Maryland, and UNLV. So aside from a team with a recent Final Four appearance in San Diego State and the host school, UNLV, there's zero mid-major representation, and I don't count Gonzaga. Gonzaga technically plays in the WCC. That's a mid-major. Gonzaga's not a mid-major. Argue with a wall. That's just where I'm at with them. There's just not a seat at the table in something like the Players era, because it's built for brands. They're not able to give away $1 million in NIL to all these schools by not having the big brands go, which sucks to see as fans of mid-majors, as a mid-major podcast, and just someone who enjoys the mid-major Cinderella stories that come with March Madness every year.
I agree that Gonzaga, they are certainly not a mid-major. They're a top 1, 2, 3 seed pretty much every year in the tournament since Mark Few has been there. So I wouldn't count them as a mid-major. But yeah, this Players Era tournament in Vegas, I think that's starting to become the big one with a lot of heavy hitters. You're going to have the best competition, I think, in that tournament year in, year out, just because of the money that's involved with NIL and all the money that these teams can win. The players obviously want to play for a prize, because who doesn't like money, right? So I think it's just a bummer from what we've seen here. A lot of these teams that are in the mid-majors can't get into these bigger time tournaments. And it's a shame, but again, that's just kind of the way college basketball is moving in the current day. The transfer portal with NIL, all that stuff. So I'm hoping it can change back to having some of these good mid-major teams get invited to these tournaments. But we shall see, because it looks like they're moving away from that.
Yeah, so let's dive in. I mentioned the Players Era as that chief kind of new age tournament. That's first it was 8 teams last year. This year it's 18 teams. Each team playing 2 games Monday and Tuesday. The 4 best teams will be taking place will face off in the championship and consolation game, with the other team filling out the rest of the consolation sides. Obviously, we're not going to know who the championship teams are and what the other matchups are for Wednesday and Thursday. I think they are both of those days, because it's going to be based off of record. The tiebreakers, point differential, I believe. So we'll see, but obviously we're not going to have any, or I can't envision us having any repeat matchups, although, getting to see Alabama and Gonzaga twice in 3 days would be pretty electric. Just see the types of adjustments that, the adjustments that these two teams are making. But so we're going to highlight 3 matchups in day 1 of the Players Era, which of course is tomorrow, Monday. Things kick off with Tennessee Rutgers at 1 o'clock Eastern, and then at 2 o'clock Eastern, we get to the first game that we're going to highlight here, Baylor versus Creighton. Creighton with their second biggest test of the year. Of course, they got blown out by Gonzaga in their first matchup. Baylor hasn't really played anyone. They handled Washington in the only real game they've played thus far. But what are you thinking on Baylor versus Creighton, George?
I'm looking forward to watching this one. Obviously, Creighton, they are no longer have Ryan Kalkbrenner, who was a staple for them down there at the center position for a handful of years. I know McDermott, he's done a really good job there. He's been floating retirement out, so he's getting towards the end there, but he always has a really, really good program. Creighton's always a tournament team, as an at-large team out of the Big East. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. Obviously, in that game against Gonzaga in Spokane, they got they kind of got killed in that one, especially in the second half. So looking forward to seeing what they do here. And then Scott Drew at Baylor. Again, Baylor, he took over that job when it was just a complete mess. It was a terrible situation when he took that job. It was one of the worst jobs in the country in terms of the Power 5. And he's turned them, obviously, into a team that won a national championship. They got a lot of new players on that team, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they all gel with one another in what should be a great game tomorrow. VJ Edgecombe, he's having a great year, I believe, for the 76ers. So they don't have him. A lot of new players on that Baylor team, but looking forward to watching this one. I think it should be a pretty high-scoring game. Do we have the spread and the team
Yes, they are out. I want to say it was a 160 total. Let me pull it up quickly for you.
Yeah, I'm looking real quick as well.
But like you mentioned, 160.
153.5.
Yeah.
Baylor's
so
laying 4.5.
Yeah, it should be a high-scoring game. I would expect more so from the Baylor side. Creighton coming into this one without sophomore forward Jackson McAndrew. He's going to be out the rest of the year with a foot injury, which is just going to put more pressure on Iowa transfer Owen Freeman. He's got 10.6 rebounds in the Jays' first 2 games. Bodes well for them, honestly, to be missing a big man and have more pressure be on Freeman, because Baylor's a little bit of a smaller team. Leading rebounder Dan Skillings is listed at just 6. Creighton got absolutely destroyed down low in that game against Gonzaga, which, remember that, because when we get into this Alabama-Gonzaga game, Graham Ike, Brandon Huff on Gonzaga, 48 points in the paint to just 24. The Blue Jays, obviously, Creighton, we kind of know what they're like. Steve McDermott, they're a team, both of these teams really, you know their coaches, you know the style of play that they're going to have. They're going to spread the ball around. It may not be the Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner that you had seen for the last, what feels like 20 years, because both of those guys were like 40 going into their final year of eligibility. But they have 4 transfers, a quintuplet of transfers, if you will, all averaging above double figures. The aforementioned Owen Freeman, fellow former Hawkeye J.D. Dix, their leading scorer, Howard transfer Blake Harper, he's also their leading scorer and rebounder, and former Charlotte 49er Nick Graves. Over on Baylor's side, they're led by Tennessee transfer Cameron Carr, averaging 23.7 points per game on 52.7% 58% from three and 67.6% from the field. And a stud freshman, I'm going to butcher this name, boy, Tunde Yesufu. I don't know if that's any relation to Joseph Yesufu, former Drake Bulldog, but Yesufu's
Kansas
averaging
Jayhawk too, yeah.
Yes, yeah, Kansas Jayhawk. Yeah. 16.3 points per game, number 11 on Sports Illustrated's NBA Draft Big Board this year. Diving into some of the metrics, averaging 78.5 points per game, good for 192 in the nation. Baylor averaging 89.3, good for second best. But Baylor, where the edge comes in for the Bears, is shot making, 51.1% on field goal attempts, which is good for 30th in the nation. Neither team really lights it up from three. But where are you leaning on this one?
I think Baylor is going to win this game. I think they're going to cover the spread too. You mentioned Cameron Carr. He came over. I know Scott Drew got him in the portal from Tennessee, and he's just put on a show this season. You mentioned it. He's just lighting it up from three. So I think he's going to be the difference maker in this one. I know Baylor's got a lot of other guys who can put the ball in the hoop. So I like Baylor here. I think they're going to win and win pretty handily, covering that 4.5 point spread in the process.
Yeah, I didn't go as far as picking the spread on this one. I did like Baylor on the money line, but you said they were at laying like 4.5, right?
4.5, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably like in the 190 range, minus 200 on the money line.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. So I do like Baylor in this one. I could see them covering the 4.5, but with the way that my plays go, as far as Creighton is concerned, that'll be a loser the second I lock in Baylor minus 4.5. So Creighton just really the Big East as a whole just finds themselves as being one of those teams that always lives to screw me over and lose me money in the process.
That's the same with me.
Yes, of course. So we both have Baylor in that one. You have anything else on this one before we keep on moving to the next game of day two?
No, I don't. But again, just this game is tipping off. I think that's 11 a.m. local time in Vegas.
Yes,
1 p.m. for me out here in the Central Time Zone, 2 p.m. for you out east. So just love these games happening during the day. And Baylor Creighton, who knows? I think that was a rematch from a 2022 tournament game. They played recently. I forget what year it was, but yeah, I remember that being a great game, and I'm expecting the same here tomorrow.
Yep, so game 3 of the day, we're not going to be previewing this one, Kansas versus Notre Dame. No Darren Peterson still for Kansas.
That's a bummer.
Next one we are going to cover St. John's versus Iowa State. This one's tipping off at 4:30 Eastern. Probably the second best game of the entire Players era, at least for the first 2 days that we know the schedule of. The Johnnies, of course, Rick Pitino, I don't really know what to say about him because it's weird because I like him as a college coach, but if you talk to anyone like maybe 5-ish years older than me, they hate Rick Pitino for his work with the Celtics. And rightfully so. He did his best to run them into the grounds there, but two top 20 teams facing off here. What do you got on the Cyclones versus the Johnnies?
I'm very much looking forward to this game. St. John's was one of my picks here before the season started to go to the Final Four. I love Rick Pitino. I think he's awesome. I love when he wears the white suit. I know he's had some problems in the past with the recruiting violations at Louisville, which led him to go coach the Greece national team, I think, and then he was at Iona, but now he's at St. John's, and he's taken them from one of the bottom teams in the Big East to winning the Big East regular season and tournament titles last year. So he's obviously one of the best coaches in the country, and I can't wait to watch this game as well. Bryce Hopkins, you mentioned him. He's been great so far for them in just 22 minutes a game. He's leading the team with 15.5 points. And Zuby Ejiofor, he was great for this team last year. He was the Big East Player of the Year in the preseason coming into this year. He's a big physical presence down low. So those two guys, I'm looking forward to watching them. Iowa State, on the other hand, I know last year they kind of had a disappointing finish after coming out of the gates hot, dealt with a lot of injuries. So I'm excited to see what they do in this one. They're more of a team. I think they tend to play it at a bit of a slower pace here. So we'll see what the effect that has here tomorrow. But again, two good teams, Big 12, Big East. I always like when those two conferences meet up with one another. And for the Cyclones here, the guy that I'm looking for is Joshua Jefferson. He's averaging almost 19 points per game, which is second on the team, and he leads the team in rebounding, almost 8 per game. And He's been a big transfer. No, wait. 2 years ago, he was a big transfer get. So this is his second full season in Ames, coming over from St. Mary's. Keep an eye on him tomorrow. I think he's going to have a huge game down low here for the Clones. But again, this should be another good game that I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, St. John's obviously lost to Alabama in their first big test
That
of
was
the year.
a great game, high scoring.
Absolute banger. Yeah, it got buried on an NFL Sunday, but if you were tuned into that one, it was probably more entertaining than some of the NFL games going on at the same time. Iowa State absolutely ran over a Mississippi State team that's solid but not great. So this is the first real tough test for that Iowa State team that, like you said, not struggled down the stretch, but had a disappointing end to the season compared to where they were at least in the first half. You mentioned Jefferson and Bryce Hopkins and Zuby Ejiofor. I think that's going to be the difference in this game pretty much. Can Jefferson either keep pace with or neutralize Hopkins and Ejiofor? Because neither team really fills it up from three. Iowa State's in the mid 100s in three-point attempts per game. St. John's all the way down at 226. So can Iowa State kind of make sure that those two big guys don't really crush them down low? And also, just like you said, Iowa State trying to run at a little bit or a much slower pace than St. John's, who love to run with the ball. That's part of what made that St. John's Alabama game so fun, is just both teams flying around the court trying to push the pace, get good looks in transition. So can Iowa State slow them down? As far as the prediction goes, I wasn't really sure where to go as far as the side is concerned. I don't really like to bet against Rick Pitino. I just told you the struggles I have betting on games involving the Big East. But I do think the Johnnies have the edge down low, so I certainly lead that way. But I do like points in this one.
Yep, I think we're going to see a lot of points. Like you said, St. John's, they love to run up and down the floor. And St. John's, they did suffer that loss to a very good Alabama team that was just here down south. Or, no, it wasn't down south. It was that game was in Chicago at the United Center when they beat Illinois. So it's a very good Alabama team they lost to. I think St. John's is going to win this game outright. I think it'll be a close game. Again, high-scoring affair, but I just think St. John's pace here is going to be a little too much for the Clones. So give me the Johnnies to win this one.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that they were a dog. I mean, it's only a point and a half, so who knows where it'll swing in the next, like 17, 18 hours until tip-off, but I was surprised to see the Cyclones as a slight favorite in this one.
Yeah, I think it's about as close to a pick'em as you can get, which, again, should make for a great game.
Yeah. I don't have anything else on this one if you want to keep moving on the Players era.
That sounds good.
Perfect. We got Houston against Syracuse tipping off at 6. Auburn Auburn and Alabama. Jesus Christ. I can't even talk. Oregon versus Auburn tipping off at 8. And this is the game I'm most excited for by far, maybe in the entirety of Feast Week. I know there's some other good mid-major games that we're going to get to, but Alabama versus Gonzaga, that's why I kept tripping over my words, rushing to get to this one. We've seen these two teams play twice in as many years. Both of those games have delivered high-scoring affairs that you would come to expect from these two programs. Alabama, shout out to Nate Oates, because he has scheduled an absolute gauntlet of a schedule for the Crimson Tide. They've already played 3 top 25 matchups. We mentioned they beat St. John's, beat Illinois, like you mentioned, George, and they lost to Purdue at home. And Purdue, what were they able to do? They were able to slow the Tide down. Another team that runs at an incredibly fast pace. Gonzaga, a little bit slower, but not too far behind. So for me, the key for the Zags in this one is, can they slow down Alabama's pace?
Yep, I think that'll be key here. You mentioned it. I think this is probably, if it's not the best game of the week, it's top 2, top 3, I'd say. This has great game, entertaining game written all over it. So I'm looking forward to this one. It looks like Gonzaga's laying 3.5 and the over-under. Yep. All these Alabama over-unders, just set so high, 173.5. So it should be a lot of points here. The guy on Alabama that really impressed me, I watched that whole game when they played Illinois the other night, was LeBaron Philon. He was fantastic, especially down the stretch there in that game. And he's leading the Tide in points with just over 20 a game. He's really stepped up here this year with him being a true sophomore. I know the Tide lost a lot of players, including Mark Sears, who was their best player, and somebody needed to take over that high-scoring role. The kind of leading scorer on this team, and Philon has done that, so I'm really looking forward to watching him tomorrow against Gonzaga. And for Gonzaga, it feels like this guy has been playing college basketball forever, but Graham Ike, he's been, I think this is his second or third year with Gonzaga. He was on that Wyoming team that went to the tournament, I think, all the way back in 2021. So he's been in college for quite a while. I'm pulling up his years here.
This is his third year at Gonzaga.
Third year. Yeah, he played. So he started in 2020 with Wyoming. Guessing this is his last year of eligibility, but he's a force down low. We'll see if Alabama has any answer for that. He's tied for 50th in the country with just over 9 rebounds a game. So he's going to be physical down there. I think he could be, he's one of the guys I'm looking for as well. So him and Philon, I think they're the two best players on each team, and they probably are going to be the deciding factors here if this game is close, who can get a bigger bucket late in this one.
Yeah, I actually... You took the words right out of my mouth there, because I said right here in our notes, Gonzaga is a veteran team with a pair of guys that fall into the how the hell are they still eligible list. Graham Ike and Tyon Grant Foster, at least in Grant Foster's case, we know he's had a ton of medical issues, so I see more of a case for him being however old, 25 years old, and still playing college basketball. But Graham Ike, man, like,
yeah.
talk about a guy who just needs to get a job. Like, fire up the LinkedIn, buddy. It is time. Somehow, some way, still only 23 years old, but in his now 5th season of college basketball, feels like this guy has been around forever. But I mentioned it with that Creighton-Baylor game. Creighton got absolutely dogged on the glass and in the paint by this Gonzaga team. And here I'm seeing a similar size advantage inside for Gonzaga. Obviously, Alabama's ability to get out in transition and get scorching hot from 3, it's something that we talked about on the last Ramble On episode, that they're shooting a high percentage, but they're not shooting a high percentage, but they run so fast that it almost doesn't matter that they're towards the bottom of the country in 3-point percentage. So obviously, I think it's so tough to run with Alabama and beat them. It's something that we saw St. John's try to do. Like I said, it's what made that game so entertaining, but it's just so hard to run at the pace that Bama runs with and keep up with them scoring-wise, on top of the fact that I'm not seeing the type of size inside to neutralize Ike and Brandon Huff. So I'm leaning Gonzaga. I think the line's probably dead on here. I think it's going to be a super entertaining game, because literally the last 2 times we've seen these games play, or these 2 teams play, they have been, I think the first one was 100-90, and then the next one was in the 160s in terms of total. So I'm expecting to see points in this one, but once again, I'm leaning on Gonzaga. Their size down low to will them to victory. I just don't think they're going to have answers for Graham Ike and Brandon Huff. In Bama's 1 loss to Purdue at home, how did Purdue win it? They slowed them down by literally, it felt like they were crawling up the floor in the second half of that one, and they absolutely dominated on the glass. They won the rebounding battle 52-28. So I trust Mark Few, assuming he hasn't had a few too many in Vegas, to be able to scheme up a way to slow Bama down and let their size advantage take over. Give me the Zags.
Yep, I like the Zags here too for the reasons you just said. I think Huff and Ike are going to be big down low, and I think that's what's going to be the final here. So I like Gonzaga to win the game. I think they're going to cover that spread too. And again, whenever these 2 teams meet, I always expect a lot of points. So I think that total of 173.5, they're going to go over that. We're going to see some fireworks in Vegas. And again, yeah, like you said, doesn't have a few too many before Vegas there, because we know he likes to do that to then get behind the wheel here. That happened a couple years ago. So, but yeah, give me Gonzaga. I think they're going to win this game, and again, this should be one of the best games of the entire week. It's always fun when these 2 teams meet, and what better place to play this game than Las Vegas? So, should be a good one.
Yeah, so that's going to be the last one that we're going to cover in Day 1. Like I said, we're only going to cover 1 game in Day 2, and then maybe we'll have to come back and talk about some of the matchups once some of the consolation and championship games are solidified. But Day 1 will round out with Michigan taking on the Aztecs of San Diego State. and Maryland taking on the host UNLV. Midnight tip-off on the East Coast, which is always my favorite kinds of tip-offs. Just late night game, get to throw it on as you're falling asleep, and yeah, that's part of what makes Feast Week so fun. I mean, obviously we have the Maui out there, and the games are always late there too, so whenever I can wake up at whatever time it is, I think the first game tips off at 11 tomorrow, and be watching college hoops all the way until the time I'm going to fall asleep. That's always a good day.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. I'm unfortunately going to be on a airplane tomorrow during that Gonzaga game, so I'll have to watch the highlights. But yeah, I love that midnight tip-off. That's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Running through some of these day 2 games, like I said, we're only going to talk about one of them, just not a ton of matchups that are wildly intriguing to me. Rutgers versus Notre Dame kicking off day 2 at 1. Iowa State taking on Creighton at 2:30. Kansas and Syracuse at 3:30. St. John's and Baylor, which is one that I came really close to having us discuss here, but it just was one that ultimately didn't make the cut. St. John's laying 5.5 early in that one, tipping off at 5 Eastern, and that brings us to the game we are going to highlight. Houston versus Tennessee. 2 Hall of Fame coaches clashing in a top 15 KenPom battle. Houston coming into this one number 2 in the country, while Tennessee ranks 20. What do you got on the Vols and the Cougs?
Well, Tennessee, they're 5-0. They're off to a hot start, coming off a year where they win. I think they were a 2 seed last year. Might have been a 3 seed, but very good season for them last year. They had Chaz Lanier, who came in from North Florida, and he was great. And then Zakai Ziegler, he was one of my favorite players in the country. He had 4 really good years there in Knoxville. Different looking team here for sure. But Rick Barnes, again, he's a great coach. He's one of those guys where when you get into the tournament, the big tournament that is in March, he seems to kind of shine away from the light. But this is a tournament here in November, so I think that they'll be ready to go. On the other side of this game, Houston, you said it, Kelvin Sampson, he is one of the best coaches in the entire country. And unlike Alabama, Houston likes to get you in the mud. They like to get you into a rock fight, and they like to play elite defense. And that's what they've been doing so far this year. That's been their MO since Sampson got there to Houston. They slow you down, they get you in the mud, and they make life really hard on the offensive end of the floor for the opponent. So I think that's going to be a key factor here. And Houston, it doesn't say a line here. It says Tennessee's plus 145 on the money line and 134 and a half. 3.5. Okay, I like Houston to cover that spread. They've got some guys who have returned, so they've got a little more veteran leadership on that team, guys who have been there and done that before, along with some really good freshmen coming in that have been very good for them as well. So I think Houston's going to be able to, again, just what they do best is play great defense. I think they're going to be able to hold Tennessee down. They're going to be able to win this game. I think not handily, but I think they should have it decided here. It's not going to be a game that comes down to the final minute or two. So give me Houston here. Give me Kelvin Sampson and that defense to get it done on Tuesday against the Vols.
Yeah, I'm also leaning Houston in this one. You can call me a square or whatever, but when 2 of the top 3 defensive teams in the KenPom metric match up, I have no choice but to take the under. So 134.5 is what you said. I will be on the under in this one. Kind of leaning on everything that you said, a little bit more experience coming back for Houston, obviously headlined by Emmanuel Sharp, senior guard, who knows what it's like to run in this Kelvin Sampson defense and offense, I guess, but definitely primarily the defense in terms of how things are played. So yeah, I'm leaning on that experience to kind of lead some of the guys. We didn't mention them, but Kingston Flemings, the leading scorer, freshman guard for Houston, kind of take some of these younger guys along and be like, no, this is how we play defense. Like some of the things that we're talking about the Loyola team lacking, like I think Houston is really good at being able to take guys into their culture and get them into their scheme and immediately have them fit. So yeah, I'm going with the Cougars. Well, I'm leaning with the Cougars, but I'm definitely running the under in this one. Houston's Houston only, they played Auburn in a neutral site game in Birmingham, Alabama, and they snuck away with a 1-point win. Tennessee has played just a Modge Podge of mid-majors. Haven't really seen anybody yet. So yeah, I like a team that's a little bit more battle-tested, a little bit more experienced in terms of playing together. And honestly, I think Kelvin Sampson, no disrespect to Rick Barnes, is a better head coach than Barnes at this point in his juncture. So I'm riding with the Cougs and I'm riding with the under.
I am right there with you. I'm riding both of those with you. So I think it will be it'll be a low-scoring game like most Houston games are, and then just that experience and just the pure talent, I think, on that roster is better than Tennessee's. So, yeah, give me the Cougs.
Yep. Alrighty, running through the rest of these ones here on day 2. Michigan taking on Auburn at 8:30. Gonzaga taking on Maryland at 9:30. Oregon and San Diego State at 11. Then Alabama and UNLV at midnight once again. The fact that we get to watch this Alabama team, I remember last year in this exact tournament, them and Rutgers were one of the later games.
Yeah, I remember that.
They went to overtime. And that game, that was my Ramble On play of the podcast, the over in that one, when we did this episode last year. So that was a lot of fun. Glad we get to see Alabama play late night yet again.
Yep, they seem to, when the lights are off, they seem to be able to put up a lot of points like they always do. I feel like during the night, during the day, whenever it is. So, yeah, I'm also looking forward to that one as well, late night.
Yeah, so just quickly, I think we're going to see Gonzaga in the championship game. Obviously, they're playing Maryland in the second game. I like Buzz Williams as a coach, but I don't think he's going to have enough in his, 6th game, 7th at most, to stop the Zags offense. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some form of Gonzaga, and then maybe quickly looking at things, St. John's, maybe Gonzaga, St. John's in the championship.
I love that,
How things unfold. So that's all I've got on the Players Era, unless you have anything else. I'm inclined to hate this tournament just because of what it's doing to the rest of the MTEs, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, again, with the NIL prizes that they put up here, with all these good teams, all these talented teams, and you know that these teams are going to be very motivated. The players and coaches are going to be very motivated to go out and win these games, obviously, just to boost the record and add to the resume, but as well as win a little money here. So looking forward to this tournament. I think it's far and away the deepest and best field and should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so moving on to the Maui Invitational, one of what used to be the gems of the Feast Week as a whole. Obviously, of course, when it was the Maui Gym, Maui Invitational, Bill Walton always out there rocking the Hawaiian shirts, and it was always, like I said, the gem, one of the really top tier MTEs. Unfortunately, it kind of seems like this one might be going the way of Bill Walton himself, RIP, of course, given the field here, and then also there's been some discourse. If the field isn't going to be as good, then there's less motivation for these teams to really go through the hassle of having to get out to Maui for a week. Obviously, traveling there is a pain in the ass. Paying to stay there is a pain in the ass. And if you're just not getting the metric opportunities to boost your resume by flying all the way to Hawaii, like at a certain point, when does the cost outweigh the benefits? And I think we're moving towards that, unfortunately, because this field is not the best. NC State, Texas, your USC Trojans, at least on
in
the football
football
fields. Yes. Seton Hall, Wazoo, Washington State, Arizona State, Boise State, and then, of course, the host, Chaminade Division II.
Yeah, no, it's just not nearly the field that we've seen. Even last year, I remember we had Auburn, we had Iowa State, we had a bunch of other good teams out there. This is not nearly that same field. I think NC State is probably the best team here. Will Wade, he's taken over. He has them ranked number 25 in the country, and he's a very good coach. And Darian Williams, the guy they got from Texas Tech, the big transfer, he was the big prize for Will Wade and the Wolfpack. He's been phenomenal this year, averaging 23.3 points per game. I think Texas, with Sean Miller there, I think they're probably the second best team, followed by SC. I don't know if you saw that game the other night. I think it was Thursday night. The Trojans took on the Troy Trojans.
The Trojans, yes.
Yep, and SC was down by 2 with like 5 seconds left. Troy threw the ball away. SC got the ball back again, down 2, triple overtime at the buzzer. I forget who hit the shot, but he was a very contested shot. He just threw it up there and it went in, and SC won that game in triple overtime. So maybe that'll be some momentum here. And then I think you kind of have a pretty big drop-off. Seton Hall, they have not been great over the last several years. Wazoo in the WCC now until next year when they move to the Pac-12. I don't expect much out of them. Even though they made the tournament 2 years ago, I think they're kind of going downhill here. I'm just waiting for the day when Arizona State fires Bobby Hurley. He's obviously not nearly the coach that his brother is over on the East Coast in UConn. Was a great guard for Duke back in the day and Coach K, but I don't think he's a great coach. And ASU, their lack of success in basketball is showing that time and time again here. And then Boise State, they've been a tournament team here the last couple of seasons, but then they had that embarrassing loss I think it was 3 weeks ago on opening night. They lost to some Hawaii team. It was like one of the worst losses in college. I think they were like Division II or Division III. Like, it was just embarrassing. So they're obviously not what they have been. Yeah. So whoever they are, they lost to them. And then Chaminade, appreciate them hosting here, but I don't have high hopes for them in this one.
Yeah. And even obviously Boise State is taking care of business in the rest of their games after losing to Hawaii Pacific, who I want to say is Division III.
I believe they are, yeah.
That right now. It doesn't even search when I click on their name in the scoreboard. It doesn't even pop them up for me. But yeah, Utah Valley, they beat by almost 30. Texas, Rio Grande Valley, they beat by 20. Montana State, they squeaked by the Bobcats in a 4-point win there, and then they beat Wichita State by 3, which, credit to them, they did something Loyola couldn't. But yeah, I'm not super impressed with what the Broncos have been doing this year. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think Will Wade's Wolfpack and the Longhorns of Texas are by far the best two teams in this one. I have them squaring off in the championship, not to get ahead of ourselves. But I think Darian Williams is the best player in this tournament. He's an absolute problem. I don't know if you saw any of the NC State VCU game last week, but I had two really, really big takeaways. Number one, VCU is going to beat Loyola by 70. And number two is that NC State is a lot better than the 25th best team in the country. So I'm rolling with Will Wade. I'm rolling with Darian Williams. They have Trey Holloman, who spent the last, I had it written down and now I can't find it, spent the last however many years, I want to say at Michigan State. Yeah, Michigan State. He is a really experienced team, and he has Amir Ora Khan, of course, who is now
the manager.
Grad assistant. Yeah, grad assistant now.
Yeah.
Who came over from McNeese. So, yeah, I don't know that anyone has a roster that can contain Darian Williams. Oddly enough, I think Arizona State or Texas probably have the best chances because they have a distinct size advantage over a team like NC State. But yeah, we can get into our predictions here, but I think you can tell where I'm going with mine.
Yeah, and one last note here on North Carolina State, Quadir Copeland. He started at Syracuse, played for Boeheim for a couple years, and then he transferred over to McNeese with Will Wade, and he obviously followed him to North Carolina State, and he's having a pretty good year too. So keep an eye out for him. But yeah, my prediction here, I have NC State beating Seton Hall, SC over Boise State. I have Wazoo taking down Chaminade. I've got Texas beating Arizona State in the first round in the semis. I'm going with Eric Musselman's group, taking down NC State. Even though I think NC State has the better team, I think SC is going to pull the upset there and meet up with Texas in the final in it's what's going to be a rematch of the 2005 Rose Bowl, an all-time classic. And I've got the Trojans and Musselman taking down Sean Miller and the Longhorns in what I'm expecting is going to be a pretty close game. Again, it's not like this tournament has a bunch of stiffs. There's a lot of good teams, but it's not like you have what we have had in the past at this tournament, which is top 5, top 10, top 15 teams squaring off, and like blue bloods like Kansas, Kentucky. I mean, all of them have played in this tournament before. Don't have any of those, so definitely a little bit of a step down, but I'm still looking forward to watching these games.
Yeah, like I said, we're both such college basketball sickos that we're going to watch every single one of these games, and probably even some that are much, much worse. The matchups are so much worse than some of these other random MTEs, and we're going to be locked in for those too. So yeah, it's obviously, like you said, not the blue blood matchups that we've become accustomed to seeing in the Maui, and I think maybe those days are over now with the emergence of the players era, but definitely still a solid field. And The next one, I guess I didn't give my predictions, so let me do that. First round, I've got NC State over Seton Hall. I've got SC over Boise. I think Chaminade's going to give Wazoo their hardest fight possible, but I've got Wazoo over Chaminade, Texas over Arizona State. In the semifinals, I've got NC State over SC, Texas over Wazoo, and then in the finals, I know I said I think if there's a chance that a team can overtake NC State, it might be Texas, but ultimately, I think Sean Miller is a fraud. I don't think he's a very good coach, and taking NC State over Texas to claim the Maui Invitational.
It's too bad that they don't make these coaches wear the suit and tie and the whole blazer and everything, because one thing Sean Miller I used to love back when he was with Arizona is he looked like he had just jumped in the pool.
Yes.
He would wear a white dress shirt, and he was just sweating like he would sweat through the entire shirt. Obviously, they're wearing like this sweatsuits now, which I'm not a fan of. Go back to the suits, especially with Sean Miller, because I always thought that was hilarious when he's.
Well, in the
again,
Maui,
it looked like he
used
had
to wear the Hawaiian
yeah, the Hawaiian
shirts,
shirts.
right?
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it was just like literally looked he had just jumped in the pool or gotten out of the ocean or something, or he just went into the shower with his clothes on. No, that was always funny. But yeah, this should be a good tournament. I think it's obviously not what it has been in the past, but still should be some good basketball on the island out there.
Yes, couldn't agree more. And speaking of some good basketball, I think this one that we're about to get into here, the Battle for Atlantis, is probably the second best field out of any of the MTEs. I know the Fort Myers tip-off, which we're actually not going to cover in this one, has Michigan State and UNC, but that's really it as far as that one's concerned. So yeah, I think the Battle for Atlantis, which like we talked about off the top, features Colorado State, Wichita State, VCU, Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, St. Mary's, South Florida, and Western Kentucky. Am I missing anyone? That should be them all, right?
Virginia Tech, did you say them?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I got
you
them.
got all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
so got them all. Obviously, a bunch of teams that we're very familiar with. Really a bunch of really good mid-majors. Vandy, who's whatever, and on the rise in the ACC, Virginia Tech team, who has a guard that's drawing comparisons to Luka Doncic. Supposed to be a lottery pick, so nice to see a school like Virginia Tech start to build themselves back up. But really, a lot of great mid-major teams in this one. Obviously, A10 foe VCU is going to be without Christian Fermin, who's taking a leave of absence. So hopefully things are all good on that front. But again, this is just an absolutely loaded VCU team. I said when I watched them play NC State, my biggest takeaway was that they were going to beat Loyola by a gazillion. But yeah, I'm excited for this one, particularly that first round matchup with can I get it back in front of me now? VCU and South Florida.
Yeah, that should be a great game. I think VCU, I don't know, we saw them last year, and then they failed to do anything in the tournament. They lost in the first day last year. But I think they're, once again, probably the best team in the Atlantic 10. They're just so deep. Every year they're just so deep. They've got 7 guys who are averaging at least 8.5 points per game and at least 20 minutes per game. So I love this VCU team. Every single year, I know they, Bamasil and the kid he transferred from Utah State, Max, I think something. Do you remember?
Max Shulga.
Yeah, Shulga.
Celtics legend, yeah. Current
Okay.
Celtic.
Yeah. And I know that they're both gone, but Phil Martelli, I think he's doing a good job. I know that that's a job where it is kind of a stepping stone job, and usually the VCU is just able to create talent every single year, and he's done a good job so far this season. So VCU is really the team that I am looking at here. Obviously, St. Mary's, they're a very good team in the West Coast Conference. They're always in the tournament, so I think they're probably second for me here. And then Colorado State, we just saw them. They looked really good against us. And Wichita State, 2 teams that we just saw. Loyola play and Loyola get beat badly by. They're going to be good. I think, even though, again, it doesn't feature the heavy hitters, there's a lot of really good teams here. A lot of teams with tournament aspirations, I think, with the exception of Western Kentucky. I don't know too much about the Hilltoppers, but I feel like they're kind of the odd man out here.
Yeah, and Phil Martelli, I think he did a really good job kind of rebuilding this roster, obviously with Ryan Odom jumping ship and heading to Virginia to try to rebuild a Cavalier team that just hasn't really been the same since, what the hell is his name? the coach? Tony Bennett.
Tony
Jeez.
Bennett, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that escaped me when it was right on the tip of my tongue, but obviously right now being led by Jadarian Tracy, who I believe also falls into that how the hell does this guy still have eligibility remaining, started out at St. Joe's all the way back in 2020, 2021, then transferred over to Oregon after playing just 2 games in the 21-22 season, but
Crazy.
He's leading the way for the Rams. Obviously, we're going to get into all our A-10 stuff once we get closer to conference play in the next month or so, but right now, Tracy, 13 points per game, 40, we'll call it 45, it's 44.8% from beyond the arc, and then obviously, Martelli coming over from Bryant is bringing some of his Bryant players with him. Barry Evans being one of them. Last year for the Bulldogs, he averaged 13 points per game and 6 rebounds, 2 assists, so obviously senior there making the step up into some tougher competition, but hasn't seemed to bother him too much. VCU is they're a really good team, and like I said, Virginia Tech coming off of what appears to be a bounce back year for them. St. Mary's coming in. South Florida, a team that Loyola has seen a whole heck of a lot in the last 2 years. They're another solid mid-major, but I really like this field, like I said. I think it doesn't have the big hitters. It has the one team that you're kind of like circling, trying to knock off, and I'm sure VCU doing that more than some of the other teams there is obviously it's a bit of a rivalry game for them, but we can dive into these predictions here. First round, I've got Vandy over Western Kentucky, VCU over South Florida. Ultimately, like I said, I think these might be the 2 of the 3 best teams, definitely 2 of the 4 best teams in the entire bracket here, so it kind of sucks that they have to see each other in the first round. I've got Virginia Tech edging out Colorado State, and then St. Mary's over Wichita. In the semifinals, I've got VCU over Vandy and St. Mary's over Virginia Tech, setting up a mid-major banger in the championship. And I've got the Rams of VCU over St. Mary's.
I like it. Mine is very, very similar. I've also got Vandy beating Western Kentucky. I've got VCU over South Florida. I've got Colorado State taking down Virginia Tech. I'm guessing that would be an upset, but really like what I saw from Farouk Manesh's team when we played them just over a week ago, or I guess a week ago to the day. So I got Colorado State over Virginia Tech, St. Mary's over Wichita. Give me VCU over Vandy. And then, where am I here? Yep, give me Colorado State. I think St. Mary's takes down Colorado State. And then I've got VCU taking down St. Mary's to win this tournament. So pretty much the same exact picks aside from I've got Colorado State, you got Virginia Tech in that one.
Yep, definitely. So that'll wrap up our MTE preview in terms of the tournaments that we're going to cover. A couple of games that I'm looking forward to outside of the ones that we previewed, and maybe either one of us, you can find us. I'll give all the socials there at the end, but maybe we'll do some individual game breakdowns for some of these ones. But I'm greatly looking forward to Iowa Ole Miss in the Acrisure Classic getting started on Tuesday.
Ben McCollum is a great yeah, I was just going to say he's unbelievable. He's a great coach. And then what's his name? Bennett Sturtz. He's fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, so greatly looking forward to seeing them play. I've watched a little bit of Iowa in a matchup against Xavier a couple weeks ago where they just ran a team that I was actually excited about with Richard Pitino taking over the Musketeers, but it doesn't seem to be translating for the younger Pitino in year one. So watch a little bit of Iowa in that one, but tough to glean too much from a blowout like that versus Chris Beard and Ole Miss, a team that was ranked at the beginning of the season, no longer ranked now, but a team that should be pretty good there in the SEC. I'm also looking forward to seeing Colorado, San Francisco, and St. Louis in Santa Clara in the Acrisure Invitational. Weird note on the Acrisure, looking at all the matchups, so there's the Acrisure Classic, and then there's the Acrisure Holiday Invitational, and then there's the Acrisure Holiday Classic, and then there's the Acrisure Invitational, and the Acrisure Series solo games. So, weird bunch. I don't know why they don't just loop all those together and just make it a whole big tournament, but yeah. So, a couple of solid mid-major matchups there, St. Louis, Santa Clara. Looking forward to seeing San Francisco take on kind of an up-and-coming Colorado team. Elsewhere around college basketball, we're going to get North Carolina, Michigan State in the Fort Myers tip-off on Thanksgiving afternoon. Wisconsin versus Providence also on Thanksgiving. Duke and Arkansas capping off what should be a fun Thanksgiving day of football and basketball at 8 o'clock. And then on Black Friday, 12:30 tip-off, we got some rivalry games in college football. Got the Egg Bowl, got NFL football, obviously trying to take over Black Friday once again. And we have a top 10 banger, UConn against Illinois, live from Madison Square Garden.
All right.
In New York. So yeah, a bunch of really solid matchups there that we didn't get a chance to touch on, but like I said, keep your eyes posted to some of our social medias, most likely TikTok if they're going to be there. George, you want to plug your TikToks real quick?
Yep, TikTok, it is at GGG Sports, and then Instagram is at George_Gabra, and then on Twitter or X, it is at GG Gabra.
Perfect. You can find me on Twitter at @co_Zach, Instagram at ZachCoSports, and my TikTok is exactly the same. It's just Zach. Let's see, it's going to crank up my volume here. Let me get my exit. @co_Zach as well. Make sure you follow the podcast on all of those platforms as well. On Twitter, we are just Ramble On Pod, and on Instagram and TikTok, we are Ramble On Pod _. Thank you so much for tuning in. A little bit of different content from us here. Obviously, we did a little bit of a different episode last year for this. It was just at the end of a normal Ramble On, but we did do a bonus pod for heading into the tournament. So looking forward to doing some more of this content where we kind of stray away from a Loyola team that honestly is not really even playing like they're worth our time currently. But
That's putting it nicely. Oh, yeah, these are always super fun to do, to just go outside Loyola. Obviously, big Loyola fans. We love Loyola, but we're obviously big college basketball fans too, and get to talk about some of these games, some of these other teams across the country. It is a lot of fun.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. So if you enjoyed this content and aren't a Loyola fan and just want to hear us talk ball, make sure to tune into our regularly scheduled programming. Not quite sure when the next episode is going to come out with the holiday and stuff, but we will be back at you recapping the, let me get the precise name about the Acrisure, the Acrisure Holiday Invitational matchups that Loyola will be taking part in starting on Tuesday against Northern Iowa. If you're looking for us to preview those games, make sure to catch up on our last episode 30 of the Ramble On podcast. We got into those two matchups against Northern Iowa and then the potential matchups of both Tulsa and San Jose State. So if you're looking for that, I would take a look there. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.